Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Tuesday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the Chicago Cubs taking on the Detroit Tigers. Drew Smyly and Reese Olson are your starters. Not my favorite game on the board. I'm going to lean towards the Cubs in this one on the money line. It's just really tough to go against Chicago when they're facing a right-handed starter right now. As Olson last game struggled against the Twins, 2 2/3 innings, 4 earned runs, and 8 base hits. And he's facing a Chicago team that in the last month, number 2 in baseball in isolated power, number 2 in baseball in team OPS against righties, only behind the Atlanta Braves, and low strikeout rate, high walk rate to go with it. Drew Smyly's not my favorite starting pitcher to back. That's why I only lean towards the Cubs here. And he has struggled in the starting pitching role, but recently he's been moved to the bullpen. He pitched pretty well in his last 3 appearances out of the bullpen. We'll see if he can pitch well as a starter here. You know, the Tigers against lefties in the last month, not great numbers. So I'm going to give me the Chicago Cubs here on the money line. Next up, it's San Francisco Giants taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to see the Major League debut of Kyle Harrison for San Francisco. And we're going to see Taijuan Walker on the other side for the Phillies. Now, Harrison is the number 1 prospect for the Giants in their organization in the minor leagues this season. Mixed numbers, you know, mid-4s ERA, really good strikeout numbers. He misses a lot of bats, but he does have some control issues. The walks were above 6 walks per 9 so far in minor league action. So, you know, facing a Phillies team, he is also a left-handed pitcher, by the way, and the Phillies do match up pretty well with the lefty right now because they have the 3rd highest walk percentage against lefties in baseball in the last 30 days. Decent team OPS numbers and isolated power numbers to go with it. So I don't know if this is the best spot for Harrison to make his Major League debut on the road. And Taijuan Walker's been pitching a lot better at Citizens Bank Park this season than on the road himself. 6-2 record with a 3.11 ERA at home this season. Giants have struggled against righties in the last 30 days. I just don't love this matchup for San Francisco. Give me the Phillies on the money line. Next up, it's the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Yusei Kikuchi and Grayson Rodriguez are your starters. 2 starting pitchers that are in great form as of late. When you look at their last 5 starts, Kikuchi 1 earned run or fewer all those games. Grayson Rodriguez 3 earned runs or fewer in his last 5 outings. For me, this game goes down to I like the Orioles at home with the better bullpen in the last month. Their expected numbers, the 3rd best SIERA in the league with a good ERA at 3.09. And the Orioles hitting lefties better than righties in the last month, while the Blue Jays have struggled against right-handed pitchers who they face in Grayson Rodriguez. Blue Jays are 23rd in baseball in isolated power against righties in the last month. Their OPS is ranked 24th. Strikeout rate a little bit below 24%, which is pretty steep for this team. So I'm going to take the Baltimore Orioles on the money line at Camden Yards. Next up, it's the Colorado Rockies taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to see Ty Blach and Zach Littell on the mound in this one. That's going to be the first of 6 games on the road for the Rockies after their 6-game homestand against the Diamondbacks and White Sox. And yes, the Rockies did have a day off on Monday to be able to get used to that altitude difference, but I still think one of the worst lineups on the road this season struggles in this game against Littell and the Rays bullpen. Littell's actually been pretty solid in that starting pitching role. The Rays bullpen's been improved in the second half of the year. Ty Blach, a lefty facing a Rays team. It doesn't have great numbers against lefties in the last month. I think we see a low-scoring game here. Give me the under in Rockies-Rays. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the New York Yankees. Josiah Gray and Carlos Rodon are your starters. The Yankees is playing really uninspiring baseball right now. 4 games under 500. They're 60-64. We got to remember, this team is not, the franchise has not finished below 500 in a season since 1992. So that streak is certainly at risk now. And, you know, sure, you have a winnable series here against the Nationals, but Carlos Rodon, a lefty, got an ERA above 7, facing a Nationals team and hits lefties very well this season. And Josiah Gray on the other side for Washington, he's a really solid option when he's pitching on the road. You know, at home he struggled at Nationals Park with an ERA just below 6, but on the road in 79 2/3 innings, he's got a decent strikeout rate, a 2.82 ERA, a lower opponent's batting average, better control, and fewer home runs allowed as well. I think Gray's good enough against the Yankees team. It's been one of the worst lineups in baseball against righties this season. I think Rodon struggles again, and I like the Nationals here plus the 1.5 runs with a sprinkle on the money line as well. Next up is the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Adam Wainwright and Johan Oviedo are your projected starters. I like the over in this game. Adam Wainwright's got an ERA at 8.42 this season overall. Not much better on the road at 8.24 ERA. And yes, he's coming off a quality start, but that was still a 4-2 loss for St. Louis. The Cardinals have lost each of his last 4 games. He's given up a lot of sharp contact this season. The control's not been great. Pittsburgh, believe it or not, this team's actually hitting righties pretty well in the last month. Good isolated power numbers, ranked in the top 5 in baseball in the last 30 days with a high walk rate to go with it. But I don't really love Johan Oviedo in this spot because he also has a tough matchup against St. Louis, who's also crushing righties in the last month with a low strikeout rate. I'm going to take the over here in St. Louis-Pittsburgh. Next up, the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Bobby Miller and Noah Syndergaard are your starters. I like the Dodgers in this game laying the 1.5 runs. I would think about laying 2.5 runs as well, as I think this is a mismatch in pretty much all facets of the game. I mean, Bobby Miller on the road this season in 37 innings, a 4-0 record, 2.19 ERA, and only 1 home run allowed. He's facing Syndergaard on the other side. He's got an ERA above 6 this season. Just gave up 5 earned runs, 6 total runs against the Reds in his last start. 2 more home runs makes it 6 home runs his last 3 starts combined. He's facing a Dodgers team that's crushing righties in the last month, top 10 in team OPS, low strikeout rate and high walk rate to go with it. To me, I think Syndergaard struggles early in this game. I think the Dodgers, Bobby Miller puts together a quality start. I like the Dodgers to win this game and cover the run line in the end. Next up, the New York Mets taking on the Atlanta Braves in the NL East. We're going to see Tyler McGill and Bryce Elder as the projected starters. I like the over in this game. Tyler McGill's got an ERA above 5.53 on the season, but on the road, even steeper, 8.2 ERA in 37 1/3 innings. A lot of sharp contact, 8 home runs allowed in those 37 innings with 22 walks to go with it. His control has not been good this season. He's facing one of the toughest lineups in baseball in the Braves. He just faced this Atlanta lineup back on August 11th. Gave up 6 runs in that game, 9 base hits, and that 7-0 Braves win. I do think the Mets will be able to back him up a little bit in the run support department. Not enough to win this game, but Bryce Elder, somebody that I do think has some regression concerns going forward. The Mets have a decent lineup against righties in the last month, so I do think that they'll be able to get a few runs, but most of the scoring should be done by Atlanta. Give me the over here in Braves-Mets. Next up, the Boston Red Sox taking on the Houston Astros. Tanner Houck and Justin Verlander are your projected starters. Tanner Houck, he pitched pretty well in his rehab outings, and this is going to be his first start back at the major league level since June 16th. And you look on the surface, it doesn't look like he's having a great season. 3-6 record, 5.05 ERA, but I do think he is better than that ERA. When you look at the expected numbers, a 3.92 expected ERA, 3.82 xFIP, I think he's going to have some positive regression going forward. He's facing an Astros team that hits lefties a lot better than they hit righties in the last month, that's for sure, as Houston is below league average in team OPS and isolated power in the last 30 days. And Boston, decent numbers against righties. They're top 10 in baseball in both OPS and ISO in that last month with a low strikeout rate to go with it. Justin Verlander wasn't the sharpest in his last game. We saw him give up a good amount of base runners in that start, 9 base hits and 2 walks in 5 innings against the Marlins. Now his offense backed him up in that game, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case here against Houck. And when you look at the bullpens, even though the Boston Red Sox bullpen ERA-wise is not great in the last 30 days, I actually think they have the advantage here because Houston's bullpen, there's a lot of regression concerns there. They're 7th highest Sierra in the league in the last month. The xFIP's also pretty steep at 4.57. I like the Red Sox. I think we're getting a really good price with Boston on the road. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to see Bailey Ober and Wade Miley as the projected starters. I like the over in the first 5 innings of this game. I don't think we're going to see a ton of scoring late because these are 2 pretty solid bullpens, but Wade Miley, a lefty who we're starting to see regress a little bit. His last game against the Dodgers, 5 innings, 7 base hits, 4 total runs, a home run. Makes it 2 straight games with a homer allowed by Miley, which is not what you want to see from a pitch-to-contact guy. And the Twins, this was a lineup at the beginning of the year, really struggled against lefties. High strikeout rate, bad power numbers, bad OPS numbers, but they have certainly improved in the last month or so in the second half of the season, where they're top 15 in baseball in team OPS against lefties, top 10 in isolated power, and that strikeout rate's gone down to 23.8%. So I like their matchup here against Wade Miley, but I also think the Brewers chipping some runs against Bailey Ober, who, Ober faced this Brewers lineup more towards the first half of the season. It was back on June 14th. I watched that game. He only gave up 2 runs in 6 innings, but gave up a lot of sharp contact in that game, including 2 home runs. And we talk about how Bailey Ober always throws a lot of strikes, doesn't really walk a lot of batters. Sometimes he leaves pitches down the heart of the plate, and we've seen him give up at least 1 home run in 6 straight games. On the road here, I think the Brewers get to him for a few runs. Bailey Ober on the road here, I should say. And I think we get over this first 5-inning total. It's a pretty low total because both of these pitchers have had pretty successful seasons in 2023. So give me the over in the first 5 between Minnesota and Milwaukee. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Jon Gray and Zach Gallen are your projected starters. Now, I do think Zach Gallen is the better starting pitcher in this matchup, but not by enough for me to want to take the Diamondbacks in this game because I do think the Rangers have the advantage in the other facets of the game, the bullpen and the lineup especially. Jon Gray had 2 bounce-back outings his last 2 starts against the Giants and Angels, 14 innings combined, giving up only 1 run with 11 strikeouts, keeping the ball on the ground a little bit better. His control is also a lot sharper. He could be back. I think he's pitching really well his last 2 games. He's facing a Diamondbacks team. It's not having great numbers against righties in the last month. So I think Gray puts together a quality start here for Texas. On the other side, like I said, Zach Gallen I think is a great starting pitching option. 10-1 record at home this season with an 1.82 ERA at Chase Field. However, the bullpen behind him just has not been very good this second half of the year, really since the All-Star break. In the last month, an ERA above 6 with the 5th highest SIERA in the league. I'm going to take the Rangers here on the money line on the road at a pretty good price because Zach Gallen's on the other side. Next up, the Seattle Mariners taking on the Chicago White Sox. No official lineup for this game, so we could see a pitching change, but right now I'm seeing George Kirby and Mike Clevenger as the listed starters. I like the under in this game. George Kirby wasn't his best in his last game against the Royals, but we know Kansas City's been one of the best lineups in baseball against righties in the last couple of weeks or so. Chicago in the last month, 28th and 27th in isolated power and team OPS against righties. I think it's a much better matchup for Kirby to put together a bounce-back outing. Mike Clevenger's really improved his game in the second half of the season. Not going to be an easy matchup against the Seattle team, but I still think Clevenger, who's got a 3-1 record and a 2.00 ERA at home this season, is good enough to keep this game low scoring. So give me the under here in Seattle, Chicago. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Oakland A's. No official starter for either team right now. In this one, could be bullpen games for both of these teams, and these have been 2 of the worst bullpens in baseball this season. Certainly in the last 30 days, where they both have ERAs above 5, have the 2 worst SIERAs in baseball. I'm leaning towards the over. Both of these offenses, though, have been decent in the last couple of weeks or so, especially Kansas City's against right-handed pitchers. I think we see a high-scoring game from start to finish. Give me the over here. And the final game for Tuesday's card in Major League Baseball, it's the Miami Marlins taking on the San Diego Padres. Jesus Luzardo and Blake Snell are your starters. Jesus Luzardo not in good form going into this game. He struggled at home. He struggled on the road. His last 4 starts, at least 4 earned runs in all those games. A lot of home runs in his last 3 starts combined, 8 home runs given up. Can't trust him here against a San Diego Padres team, maybe having a disappointing season, but in the last month has good numbers against lefties, top 15 in isolated power, top 5 in team OPS, a very low strikeout rate at 16.8%. Blake Snell's been one of the best starting pitchers in baseball in the second half of the year. I think he pitches well enough for the Padres to win this game and cover the run line in the end. So give me San Diego laying those 1.5 runs to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Tuesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.